My dear friends, I'm continuing my year of Brian De Palma films by watching one of his biggest and most classic films, Scarface. Believe it or not, this is the first time I'd ever seen it, and I agree with the hype. So what happens in this thing? We follow the story of Al Pacino playing Tony Montana, who escapes Cuba with a whole bunch of other refugees and goes to South Florida. And turns out he wasn't a great guy to begin with, and he doesn't become any better once he gets here, because he ignores some very good advice he got, gets high in his own supply, and burns out fast. It's like his mentor tells him in the movie, he's not going to last. He starts off by doing a hit against a former Castro ally, gets hired on to do a drug deal, and that goes spectacularly grisly sideways, involving a chainsaw. And when I saw that first scene, I knew this movie was not screwing around. So when it comes to intense scenes, Scarface will deliver. But I gotta be honest, the first 40 minutes or so outside of that one exciting shower scene, they were fine, but they just kind of meandered to establish the character of Tony Montana and his relationships with his friends, family, and his drug dealing boss. But it felt like it was gonna be this meandering story that didn't really pay off in a whole lot of ways, like I think of the Godfather movies. I've seen 1 and 2. I wasn't particularly impressed by both. Now, I recognize that there's a lot of people who call me an idiot for that, but I'm not an idiot, I'm a retard. Get it right. But those movies aren't very exciting, and they take for friggin' ever to get done. And at no point did I feel that they particularly paid off. Now, I understand sometimes the prototype of great things has to happen first, and it might not age that well, but it has to be there for better to build upon it in the future. And I think this is definitely the case, because Scarface fixes the problems that I had with the Godfather films. Because once the dancing clown shows up, things kick into gear, and all that preamble comes back at some point and pays off in spades. The action kicks in, the excitement kicks in, and this weird sense of dark absurdist humor also kicks in. So while there's not much in the way of overt comedy in the movie to allow for the pressure and release that keeps movies from becoming monotone and boring, if you're paying attention, the dark, wry humor that pops up in it, this is like Wes Anderson directed a gangster film, and it's really good. I found myself laughing out loud quite a bit. So I am a fan. And one thing that stuck out to me about this flick is a technical aspect that Brian De Palma must be a fan of doing, is using the camera and distances from characters and how characters are arranged in a scene to play with perspective and to have the perspective the audience is getting from the screen to pick up on things in the story. For example, it seemed to me that most of the scenes involved the camera being a little further back than in any other movie it would be. And I felt that created a sense of isolation and separation, which the characters in the movie, they're all going through that. So not only are they getting it across through their mannerisms, which nonverbal communication is a pretty important part of the acting that happens in Scarface, but also the camera is reinforcing it in the mise-en-scène, how the whole shot is set up. And Brian De Palma is not at all afraid to put his camera on security cameras to additionally play with that sense of perspective. And Al Pacino delivers a fantastic performance. Actually, all the performances in this movie are really good. And his house, yes, even with the bullet holes, I would take that thing in a heartbeat. So if you're a rare person like me who hadn't seen Scarface until recently, treat yourself. It's a classic for a reason.